During one of the setups, something went wrong. The explosives detonated prematurely, and the tamping iron rod was driven through Gage's head. This 6-kilogram rod, over 3 centimeters in diameter and 110 centimeters long, went through his left cheek, behind his eye, pierced his brain, and exited his skull. However, like in a horror movie, Gage stood up and started talking to his coworkers.
Seeing your coworker just, first off, seeing that explosion happen, then walking up to it and just seeing your coworker stand up with a rod in his head, yo. Nah. Yo, what's good, YouTube? In this video, we got the 8 fortunate people who survived the impossible. Let's get to it.
The plane with Vesna on board exploded at an altitude of 10,000 meters. 27 people on board lost their lives. Vesna was trapped by debris while falling.
R.I.P. to all the people, yo.
Counting the last seconds of her life. In this video, I'll tell you about 8 accidents where the victims managed to trick death itself.
As always, viewer discretion is advised.
Wait, hold on. So they didn't die then? All right, my bad. I said R.I.P. thinking they died. They tricked death?
Way, if Earth spun just a tad faster, air disasters would skyrocket, but the world around would look exceptionally beautiful. These thoughts were sparked by the sponsor of this video, Mova Globes.
Oh, that's nice.
Artwork cases, April 2022. The professional skiing team Les Pautos headed to Mage Mountain, but they didn't choose well-equipped slopes. They opted for the extreme terrain near the La Grave resort. The total vertical drop there is up to 2,300 meters. There are several dangerous descent routes with nearly vertical sections, forested areas, rocks and glacier crevices. And one of those crevices was encountered by a 36-year-old skier from Les Pautos. For some reason, he decided to ascend the slope earlier than the rest of the team and make a solo descent. However, as he sped down the
Try to be that lone wolf, yo.
Slope, he saw a spot where the snow had collapsed into a small pit ahead.
And no one
He tried to swerve to avoid it, but it was too late. The snow on the slope shifted, knocking him off his feet, and within seconds, he found himself in open space, plummeting into a deep, icy crevice. He slid deeper into the crevice until his skis got stuck, miraculously stopping his fall. He was 15 meters deep in a narrow ice fissure, at risk of falling even deeper at any moment. And there was no one to help him. The rest of Les Pautos hadn't even reached the summit yet. For over 20 minutes, the skier clung to the icy walls with ice axes and crampons, trying to save himself. Miraculously, he wasn't injured, and his teammates eventually found and rescued him. Glacier crevices can be as deep as 45 meters, and there might be no visible signs of such a chasm on the surface. The fact that a member of the French team survived and made it out unscathed after such a shocking fall is incredible luck. While you can expect potential danger
Very fortunate for real, yo.
from extreme skiing, the incident involving a resident of Gonzales Coton was completely unexpected. At the end of March 2022, a woman named Candela was waiting for a train when she suddenly felt herself losing consciousness. What happened next was a nightmare. She couldn't keep her balance and fell, her head landing right between 2 moving train cars. Her body then turned parallel to the platform and slipped into a narrow gap. The onlookers at the subway station were horrified. They believed they had witnessed the tragic death of a young woman. But when the train stopped and the passengers rushed to find Candela under the carriages, they unexpectedly pulled her out alive. She regained consciousness and seemed to move quite confidently. When Candela was taken to the hospital, it turned out she had only minor scratches. She didn't remember the horrific incident. She felt herself blacking out, tried to warn the person next to her, and came to as one of those who managed to cheat death. Unfortunately, not everyone is so lucky.
Under the train track and just a couple of scratches, yo. Oh my God.
One day in March 2023, workers at a candy factory in West Reading, Pennsylvania, smelled gas amidst the aroma of chocolate. They reported it to their supervisor, but he said only higher-ups could declare an evacuation. So everyone went back to work. Less than 30 minutes later, there was an explosion. Tons of debris, smoke, and flames shot into the air, all that was left of one of the factory buildings. The blast was so powerful that a neighboring building shifted by 120 centimeters. The destruction damaged nearby gas lines, fueling the fire even more. Just seconds before the explosion, Factory worker Patricia Borges was going down the stairs. Suddenly, everything shook and she lost her footing. She noticed her arm was on fire just before the floor crumbled like a toy, and Patricia fell into a vat of molten chocolate in the basement. The chocolate softened her fall and extinguished the fire, saving her life. Meanwhile, injured workers lay around the destroyed factory, lucky to have escaped the rubble. When rescuers arrived, Patricia heard their voices and cried out for help. Still, hours passed and no one came to her rescue. Bodies were being pulled from the wreckage. Initially, 2 deaths were reported, but it was later revealed that 7 people had lost their lives in the explosion. The next day, rescue dogs signaled that a human body was nearby. However, no one expected what happened next. The brief silence was broken by a muffled cry from beneath the rubble. An exhausted Patricia regained consciousness as the vat she was stuck in started filling with water from the firefighters' hoses. After surviving the explosion, the fire, and half a
So she was just sitting in chocolate for like mad long, yo? Like, nah.
day under the debris, she was
That's
about to drown.
crazy.
Luckily, she was saved just in time. Doctors found bruises, burns, a broken collarbone, and fractures in both heels. Despite everything, Patricia survived against all odds. Phineas Gage, on the other hand, had no chance of surviving. He should have passed away, but instead, he made history with the shocking injury he sustained. The story happened in 1848, yet scientists worldwide still study it today. On September 13th, 25-year-old construction worker Phineas was laying railroad tracks in Cavendish, Vermont. He was tamping down explosives into drilled rock holes with a special metal rod. During one of the setups, something went wrong. The explosives detonated prematurely, and the tamping iron rod was driven through Gage's head. This 6-kilogram rod, over 3 centimeters in diameter and 110 centimeters long, went through his left cheek, behind his eye, pierced his brain, and exited his skull. However, like in a horror movie, Gage stood up and started talking to his co-workers. They were shocked by the sight, but quickly rushed him to the hospital. There, he horrified the townspeople by chatting with them, despite the hole in his head. He greeted the doctor with, "Here's business enough for you." A few days later, Gage developed a brain infection, and his slim chances of survival dropped to 0. Still, to the amazement of even modern specialists, he recovered, losing his left eye, yet remaining fully functional. However, his personality changed drastically. The once polite Phineas became rude, impolite, and brash. Nevertheless, he lived another 12 years, and his case spurred the development of the now critical field of neurology. The rod and his skull are still preserved in a museum.
Lemonade, pet,
That is insane,
insurance.
yo.
3 words you've probably never heard used together. A drink, your best.
Other
That is
heroes in this
absolutely
video
insane,
managed
yo.
to etch their names in history while still alive. On March 12, 2000,
Seeing your coworker just, first off, seeing an explosion happen, then walking up to it and just seeing your coworker stand up with a rod in his head, yo. Nah.
2006, over a dozen tornadoes formed above the Ozark Plateau in Missouri. Residents were urged to take shelter, but 19-year-old Matt Suter, his grandmother, and his uncle continued watching TV in their mobile home. Meanwhile, one of the tornadoes accelerated to 217 kilometers per hour, capable of causing considerable damage. When the tornado approached
Shit, yo, this might sound stupid, but I might become a tornado chaser one day. Yo. I might be chasing
the Suter's trailer,
might,
they had no chance. Matt heard a wild roar, like 10 jet
Tornadoes are
fighters
beautiful,
coming at
bro.
them. Then, the tornado came into view, bombarding their mobile home with debris picked up along the way. The absolute nightmare began seconds later. The powerful force ripped the trailer door off, tore away the roof, and then demolished the home entirely. The vortex sucked up the trailer's debris and belongings, and suddenly, it pulled in Matt. He screamed, felt a blow, and everything went dark. The tornado's debris pile buried Matt's grandmother and uncle, but they survived with minor injuries. They saw Matt get sucked into the vortex, so fearing the worst, they went searching for his body. Meanwhile, Matt Suter regained consciousness in the middle of a field, disoriented, but unharmed. The only injury he sustained was a bump on the head from a lamp in the trailer. Running to his friend's house for help, Matt didn't yet know that his relatives had survived and that he had set a world record. It turned out that Suter entered the Guinness Book of World Records as the person thrown the farthest by a tornado and survived. Matt still holds the record.
There's a record for that? Nah. That's like crazy, absurd right there. Hey, yo, if you get thrown in a tornado, you get launched pretty far, and you survive, you'll be famous. There you go. Like, what?
Record at 398 meters, getting caught in the heart of a tornado and living.
Of course, that's just something accidentally that becomes a record. No one's actually going for that. I hope not. I hope no one's going to be like, all right, the next tornado, I'm going to just jump in that hole, let it launch me, and then I'm going to try to survive. I hope no one's actually planning to do that.
To tell the tale is nothing short of a miracle. In 1925, the deadliest tornado year in U.S. history, tornadoes claimed the lives of 794 people. So, Matt Suter definitely fooled death itself. 31-year-old Casey Wagner, on the other hand, tricked death twice. At the end of October 2013, he attended a popular off-road race in St. Joe, Texas. However, the event was interrupted by a severe thunderstorm, and Casey took shelter under a small tree. Suddenly, the very thing his mother had warned him about since childhood happened. Casey saw sparks flying from the tree trunk. Then, a powerful flash blinded him, and an unseen force knocked him to the ground. He realized he had been struck by lightning, yet before he hit the ground, a second bolt struck him. Wagner felt the electricity surge through him, and
2 bolts back to back is crazy, yo. It was meant to be. But
him to the ground.
Was targeted, yo.
He realized he had been struck by lightning, yet before he hit the ground, a second bolt struck him. Wagner felt the electricity surge through him.
He has a E-bar thorn somewhere around there. That's all I'm saying. Like, if you know, you know. He has a E-bar thorn somewhere around there. That shit was planned.
And it felt like his thumb was being ripped off. He was convinced he was dying and cried out for help with his last.
Oh, hold on, some audio problems. Come on now, don't do this to me.
Nurse who was on duty at the race rushed to his side and stayed. Thumb was being ripped off. He was convinced he was dying and cried out for help with his last ounce of strength. A nurse who was on duty at the race rushed to his side and stayed with him until the ambulance arrived. To the doctor's surprise, Casey Wagner was practically unharmed, despite the electricity traveling through his body from his right.
Unharmed by getting struck twice.
Leg to his left arm. He only suffered muscle pain, shortness of breath, tremors, and tingling in his limbs. This case is truly astonishing. First, the odds of being struck by lightning in the US in a given year are about 1 in 750,000, yet Casey got hit twice in a row. Second, the average
in like a couple of seconds, yo.
Lightning bolt carries around 300 million volts, while a standard outlet has a maximum of 240 volts. Each year, 400 people worldwide get electrocuted.
I'm just here for the games.
At home, and half of them lose their lives. So, what are the chances of surviving a double lightning strike? I'd say about the same as surviving a fall from nearly a kilometer high. On January 25th, Joe and Mackenzie Wethington arrived in Chickasha, Oklahoma. This was a special day for them because Mackenzie was celebrating her 16th birthday, and her dad had arranged to fulfill her wildest dream, a parachute jump. Joe gave written consent and planned to jump with Mackenzie. The Wethingtons planned to perform a static line jump, which means the parachute opens automatically. Before taking to the skies, they had to undergo a 7-hour training session. Only when the instructors were sure that Joe and Mackenzie had learned all the safety rules were they cleared for the jump. Excited and a bit nervous, Joe and Mackenzie took a selfie and then boarded the plane. Joe jumped first so he could watch his daughter make her dream come true. When Joe was already on the ground, the plane reached just over 900 meters, and Mackenzie jumped. However, Joe's joy quickly turned to horror as he saw something was wrong. Mackenzie's parachute opened, but then spiraled out of control. Her descent sped up, and Joe could only watch helplessly as his daughter plummeted toward the ground. Medical personnel rushed to Mackenzie and were astonished to find that she was still breathing. She was rushed to the hospital, where they discovered multiple broken ribs, a fractured shoulder blade, a lumbar spine fracture, a pelvic fracture, and severe liver damage. The doctor's prognosis was grim. They didn't expect her to survive. However, Mackenzie became a medical miracle, not only surviving, but also bravely undergoing rehabilitation. She became a local hero, inspiring people with her incredible story. If you think it couldn't get more unbelievable, let me tell you about the story of a flight attendant, Vesna Volovich, mentioned at the very beginning of this video. In 1972, Vesna Volovich worked for Yugoslavia's national airline. On January 26th, Flight 367 took off from Stockholm to Belgrade, now the capital of Serbia. During a stopover, a backup crew, including Vesna, boarded the plane. Due to an airline error, she was on this flight instead of her scheduled one. So, Flight 367, with Volovich on board, took off from Denmark, but never reached its next stop. 46 minutes after takeoff, the plane exploded over what was then Czechoslovakia. 27 passengers and crew were ejected from the cabin at an altitude of 10,000 meters, almost instantly perishing from lack of oxygen and temperatures plunging to minus 50 degrees Celsius. However, Vesna Volovich was pinned by a food cart in the tail section of the fuselage, which plummeted to the ground at breakneck speed. What happened next seems utterly unreal. The piece of the plane with Vesna crashed into a forested area where the trees helped slow the fall. Deep snow further cushioned the impact, and the fuselage landed at an angle that left Vesna on the surface. The plane was reduced to wreckage, and among the debris, a local villager found Vesna alive. And that's not all. The villager was a former army medic who provided her with critical first aid. Had any detail been different, Vesna likely would not have survived.
That is crazy, yo. That very important.
Indeed, her
right there.
condition was dire. Volovich had a fractured skull, several broken ribs, 3 broken vertebrae, a broken pelvis, and both legs were shattered. She was paralyzed from the waist down and spent the next 27
Damn near everything, yo. From falling from a plane? I'm surprised her arms aren't broken too. Like, how the fuck? Everything will be
days in a
broken.
coma.
Yo, damn.
Yet, against all odds, she regained consciousness. After 16 months in the hospital and extensive rehabilitation, she could walk again. Vesna became a global sensation, earning a place in the Guinness World Records for the highest fall survived without a parachute. It's worth noting that the explosion on Flight 367
Yo, bro, like,
was caused by a bomb.
Guinness World Record just be saying like, oh, you survived that? Shit. Here's a record. Now let's see if anyone else trying to survive something else. Like, why? I don't see how that's records and shit, yo.
So Vesna Volovich also survived a
That's
terrorist
crazy.
attack. Encountering such situations is extraordinarily rare, but surviving them is a true miracle. I was amazed to find that miracles happen often enough to create a sequel to this video. So feel free to subscribe to the channel to catch its release.
Hell yeah. This is definitely gonna be a channel I do more reactions on, because this is my first reaction ever. So I mean, like, and if y'all got any recommendations on what to react on, man, put it in the comments. And this sequel, I might definitely do this sequel right here. This is the first one. I might definitely do the sequel to this. Is some crazy shit. This right here is the creepiest wordplay. Nah. See, I don't know if I want to do that, yo. I might be scared of work. God damn. But yo, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next one.